And you can also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat as well, but I'll give everyone one last chance and then we'll go through some slides. Anyone else like to jump in? Okay, great. Well, feel free to keep introducing yourself within the chat. So thank you all so much for introducing yourselves and for being here tonight. I think it's really exciting. We have a lot of folks from different areas of Cheshire County, and also it sounds like a lot of different ideas for projects. So basically the way this evening is going to go is we're going to go through some of the logistics of the grant. We're going to talk about potential projects. Then I'm going to hand it over to Amanda to talk a little bit more about the application process, some tips and tricks on what we're looking for, and then we'll open it up to questions. But, as we go on, feel free to put those questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. But thank you all again for being here. So just a brief overview of the Conservation Opportunity Fund. The mission is to really provide funding for owners of small tracts of land who are interested in improving wildlife habitat on their property. And the way that this specific grant program works is that the fund reimburses project costs. So rather than a check at the beginning of your grant, if you were to be awarded, we ask that you save receipts for your project costs and you'll be reimbursed for those at the end when you submit your final report, which we'll talk a little bit about that timeline later. Just to reiterate, planning, design, and installation of the project is the responsibility of the landowners or any contractors that they may hire for the installation or consultation of their project. So really, Amanda and I are here to provide technical assistance. We can connect you to different resources. We can answer any application questions or just, bounce back ideas, but we do not provide design or installation of the projects. So just an overview of our eligibility. So to apply and to be awarded the grant, you must be a private landowner in Cheshire County. If you don't own the land, but for example, if you had a long-term lease, we would just need to know that you're in a long-term lease and that, the real purpose of this is we want to make sure that these projects continue on. So we wouldn't want to install a project on like a short-term rental situation. To be eligible, you have to be on tracts of land 25 acres or less total. So that's just something to keep in mind. Our focus is on smaller landowners. And this grant will fund individuals, businesses, organizations, farmers, and forest landowners. So you don't have to be just an individual person to apply. We've also funded some really exciting projects at local organizations. So I'm just going to go through a bit of the different project types that we funded in the past. In the past, the fund has really funded a wide range of different projects. So one example of a project that we've funded in the past is the installation of native pollinator habitat. And I would say that out of all the projects we funded over the years, this is a very popular option for use of this fund. And so because of that, we have a lot of really great examples of success stories of native pollinator habitat installation. And we'll talk a little bit about the resources we have online later, but we have quite a few covering this and some examples to look to as well in our community. So just an overview, native pollinator habitat. These are areas planted with native vegetation, which provide nectar and pollen sources, as well as offering a low disturbance area for nesting and egg laying. And just in the photos below, you can see you see this kind of smaller native pollinator habitat that's in a raised garden bed. And then you also see this other example, which is basically a front lawn converted into a mini pollinator habitat meadow. So we've funded projects that are on the smaller scale, with this like really lovely raised garden bed type of model, to, native pollinator meadows, so even larger than front lawns. So this is just an idea of, there's really no limit to the scale of what this project could be, but these are just a few examples. Another great project that we have really been working on are rain gardens. And so rain gardens are depressed areas of a landscape that collect rainwater from a roof, a driveway, or a street, and it allows water to soak into the ground. So these rain gardens are planted with native perennials and shrubs, and are really critical to managing stormwater runoff and improving water quality. And last year we launched a new partnership with Soak Up the Rain, New Hampshire, which is a program through the Department of Environmental Services. And this partnership really allows for applicants to speak with the Soak Up the Rain team, who have expertise in this, to discuss their plans or even receive a technical assistance visit. Now with it being, colder weather now, the technical assistance visits have kind of come to an end for the season. But, if a rain garden is of interest to you, we have a form on the Conservation Opportunity Fund website page to fill out. And we can definitely get you in touch with folks from the Soak Up the Rain team. They have just amazing resources that can really help you plan. And, there's some other creative ways we can figure out how to do a technical assistance visit, even with it being, pretty cold out right now. And so we'd also like to add that just reaching out to the Soak Up the Rain team is really great in creating a compelling proposal and application. And it's just a great first step. Sometimes we go to different sites or we talk with landowners who may think that a rain garden's a good fit, but the team might see potential for a project that could be an even better fit. But we found that rain gardens are really popular with folks who live by bodies of water or streams. That's where they're really most successful and make the most difference. But also we've seen people use rain gardens to also divert water that's, flooding their basement and running off into bordering, areas of water. So those are just a few ideas. And below you can see just an example of kind of what the classic rain garden looks like. And, it's pretty similar to the native beds that I was showing you in the last slide. But the real difference here is that these are really crucial in managing that stormwater runoff that can lead to pollution. So another project that we've funded in the past is the creation and maintenance of early successional habitat. So old fields, shrublands, and young forests are often referred to as early successional habitat. And these are really increasingly uncommon in the New Hampshire landscape, especially with just kind of a rise in development, and they're really important for a diversity of wildlife. So you can see in the diagram below just an example of what that early successional habitat looks like. It's a nice mix of like young forest, mature forest, and shrubs, native grasses, and you can kind of see that at play in that larger photo of what that looks like. So this is another really exciting project, and we have, I believe, a few examples to turn to in our area that we funded in the past. But this is another really exciting eligible project through the grant. And another one that we've funded in the past are the creation of vegetated buffers on surface waters. So that could be lakes, streams. And so these vegetative buffers are along surface waters and are planted with native trees, shrubs, and perennials. And these help reduce erosion and improve water quality by, so for example, during a rain event, if water is carrying pollution or, chemicals or, just the waste we see collected on our roadways, these buffers would block that from going into a body of water, while also providing some native habitat to pollinators and birds. So that's just another example of an eligible project through the fund. And another popular one we see a lot is the conversion of lawns or fields to native plant gardens. So this is just a small example on a front lawn, but we've also seen this type of project at play in like a much larger type of meadow or field. So that was a very fast run through of just the different projects that we funded in the past and some ideas of where the funding could go from this grant. So I'm just going to turn it over to Amanda to talk a little bit more about what projects will be given priority in this grant round.
All right, thanks, Benet. So what are we going to be giving priority to? Basically, we are hoping folks follow application guidelines. I know that seems pretty obvious at face value, but one thing that we do ask for people to do is to actually go through each of the questions in the application and answer it in that order, only because it helps our reviewers compare apples to apples, and it gives your project a much better chance of being selected if the reviewers can really easily pinpoint sort of the answers to the questions that they're looking for. We also ask for people to have a good plan for site prep, for long-term maintenance and sustainability of whatever project you have. Now, depending on your project, that may look different case by case, but really showing us in the application that you've thought through what are the steps and resources that it's going to take for you to be successful in the long term. Next piece here is demonstrating landowner inputs of time and resources. Now, this isn't a requirement, but it's often looked upon fondly if you're showing that you are, you've got some skin in the game in a way, like that, you're asking maybe for $500 to help you with the plantings, but as a result that you're going to contribute, X number of hours of your own time, and you're going to be buying some other, soil amendments or something like that, just because it shows that you have a real investment in the project. Again, not 100% necessary, but we're just trying to share sort of what our reviewers have given attention to in the past. So again, the next one is being informed by the ecology of our region. So understanding that we really are about trying to work with native plantings. And so making sure that what you're proposing as local, it makes sense for our environment here in New Hampshire, and that it also makes sense for your property in particular. Like when you're looking around, that you're thinking about what are the soil types here? What is the sun versus shade and the requirements of whatever that you're proposing? So just sort of thinking through your project in the larger ecological context of the landscape. The last one is providing opportunities to partner with the conservation district to offer community education. One of the main reasons why we started this project was so we could all learn from each other. Like I heard in the introductions that many people here are, avid gardeners, folks who have been at this for a long time, already care a lot about, say, pollinator habitat. And so we wanted this to be able to be a forum for people to share with each other. So whether that's through, writing blogs, sharing through social media, working with us to do some, workshops on your land or a property tour. We're really excited about what that could look like as a possibility. So what's not eligible? Projects that have already been installed and are in progress. I'll just share that what we mean by that is that this timeline, and we'll get into the timeline in a moment, but it's for basically you have a year after you've been selected to when you want to be completing your project. So I want to make sure that these are distinct projects that can be accomplished in a given year's time. And a lot of times people are like, well, I've already got I started in March before you came out and did a site visit, and I want to just like jump on it. And we appreciate the enthusiasm. We genuinely do. But the project team loves to actually, once projects are selected for funding, to come out and do a site visit with you, talk to you about your plans, and provide a little feedback, a little give and take based on what your goals are, maybe some advice on how we could sort of support your project or provide you with additional resources. And the main reason behind that is we just want to see you be as successful as possible at whatever that you're taking your time and energy to put together. So that's the main reason why we say we would really like to be working with people who haven't already started their projects or they're not in progress. Though I will say, for folks who, someone mentioned earlier that they've already been doing a meadow. Well, that's awesome. Just because you're already doing some wildlife habitat on your property doesn't make you disqualified in any way. I just want to make sure that's clear. I guess what we're looking for is whatever the distinct project is that you're applying for, that's what we hope that you're not already jumping into. And I can clarify that if people have specific questions later. So because we're trying to share the love here with these grants, we're ask people who've already applied and been successful with receiving a grant. We ask them to wait a couple years before they apply again, because we want to spread these grants around in the community. And funding won't be provided for landowner time. So not paying an hourly wage to landowners to be able to do this. We see that sort of as the in-kind volunteer time for the budget. This isn't a research grant. We're looking to work with projects that have who already have like a track record of success in the community and have sort of that good science backing it up, like that these are good projects to be working on, and anything that won't lead to improved wildlife habitat on the ground. Because it's not research, this is all about installation and maintenance of habitat. All right. So grants are $1,500 or less. They're paid through reimbursement, as Benet had mentioned earlier. So at the completion of the project, you would basically submit your request for reimbursement, and you'd share with us your copies of invoices and receipts that have documented what you've spent these funds on. And they should kind of align to your budget that you put in your proposal. And if things that you put in your proposal have changed a little, we always encourage people to talk to us throughout that grant process. Grantees are also asked to submit a record of time and funds that grantees have spent on completing the project as well. And that's just to give us a better sense of what it took to make sure that these projects are successful. Right. So I'll just say one more thing before I jump into the timeline about the project reports. If you are selected, there is a final report too, but it's really just more of a sharing with us how it went for you. All right, and so this timeline. So as you know, the RFPs, the request for proposals, have been out for a little over a month now. The timeline for them to be due is February 1st. So about a month and a half left before the due date. During the month of February, reviewers go over them and make selections. And then by March 15th, all applicants, whether successful or not for funding, we're going to be notified of whether you received the funding or not, hoping that this will give you plenty of time to secure plant materials and make plans after we've done a site visit with the successful applicants. And we ask folks to be thoughtful about the fact that projects are going to be completed by the end of the given year. Okay. So what is included in your project proposal? In a nutshell, you've got a narrative, and we're going to get into those questions later. So I'm going to go over that real quick. Then we've got a budget. Create a detailed budget for your project. Look through online quotes and prices. See what you can find. Make some requests to some local providers. That way you can really put together a realistic budget for what you think that you're going to be doing. We do ask for a map, and this can be intimidating. And I just want to dissolve that, any fears about creating a map. This can be hand-drawn if you want it to. We just want to get a sense of, okay, here is the property. This is about this space that we have. And here's a sense of open land versus forested. It helps the reviewers sort of paint that picture of what your property looks like. And then we ask folks to do 1 to 2 photos, so that way reviewers can also see that too. Like, okay, here's the before pictures. Here's where we're going to be doing the proposed work. All right. And so creating a strong proposal, we want to be able to provide you with as many resources as possible. And so on the Conservation Opportunity Fund, which is basically our website, /COF, Conservation Opportunity Fund. There's a lot of different resources if you scroll down on there, from everything from rain gardens to pollinator habitat, or like Successional, and we really encourage people to look at them. So research your budget and plan. Give us a call if you have questions that we don't answer tonight, if you want to dig in a little deeper. We're always happy to have a phone conversation with you about your project. All right, so I'm just going to go over sort of what the questions are in the narrative, just this way that way, if anyone has questions when we get to the Q&A, hopefully this will jog them for you, because this is what we're going to be asking people to share. And you can see we're not looking for pages and pages and pages. We ask people, all these questions combined to be about 1,000-word response. So, no more than a couple pages. You should be able to get across what we're asking for. So the first question, when we ask you to describe your project, this is sort of the executive summary, if you will. Like, what is the big picture? What's happening here? What do you plan to do? What do you plan for your results to be, in just a few sentences? And then in the second question, this is where we want you to sort of get into a little more detail about the outcomes of your project. What are the results going to be? So it's like, okay, if you're creating a pollinator garden, is it going to be 10 by 50 feet? Is it, sort of getting to some of that level of detail about what outcomes that you think you're going to be shooting for here. What is it going to look like when it's done, basically? Question number 3 is the activities and tasks. So what is your work plan? So you've got this goal, the end goal that you just described in number 2. And we really want question number 3 to be a step-by-step description of what it is you're going to do to get there. And now site preparation is super critical, especially when it comes to rain gardens and pollinator habitats, which many people have applied for this grant for. And because we really do encourage people to think through, how are you going to be creating that meadow? What are the steps you're going to take? Are you doing it an organic method? All right, well, that might take multiple tillage. All right, do you have equipment to do that tillage? Or maybe you're going to be using a smother crop. All right, did they put seed into their budget for that? Have they thought about all those different things? Or if you're using tarps to be able to kill off existing vegetation, maybe that needs to be put into the budget. So we're really just like looking for like, all right, what are those steps? Put those in here in sort of a logical order of how you're going to be doing them. And then that helps you really tie into your budget. All right, if I said I'm going to do these steps, all right, I better be accommodating for those dollars to do those steps in that budget. All right. The fourth question is sort of the how can we help you? So we're here, we want to better, we don't expect everybody to come to the table knowing everything, and we just would love to hear where your questions are. So that way, if you do need resources or any assistance, we could try to help connect you with those resources. That's not a bad thing. So don't feel like you have to be like, oh, we got it, we're all set, because you're trying to prove that like everything about it. It's like, we're happy to help. We want this to be a collaborative learning process. All right, number 5, briefly describe your skills and resources. So this is just like, what do you bring into the table, basically? We want to hear sort of your strengths, that you're able to do this. Are you an awesome educator? Like, do you have amazing skills with social media? You love to write blogs? There you go. That would be awesome to include too. But if you're a long-term gardener and you really understand and love how to care for native plants, that's wonderful to know. All right. Number 6, what's your plan for long-term maintenance and sustainability of your project? And again, depending on your project type, this could look really different. We just want to make sure that you do have a plan in place. For example, Benea mentioned earlier about like long-term rentals, for example. So maybe you are a renter and you're applying for this grant. That could be fine. We would just love to know, like, you've talked to your landlord about it. They're on board with it. They want to see this be successful too. Maybe we bring them into the conversation. Or maybe if it's about long-term maintenance of early successional habitat, you kind of think through, okay, annually, I'm going to step in and do these items, or I'm going to have to hire a brontosaurus to do some work every so many years. And that's something that you would want to maintain, because that's again, part of this is just like thinking through that planning is like, do I really want to maintain something like this for the next 5 years, 10 years? So just helping try to think through this. And then the last one is what education you're interested in. This is where you get to be creative, whatever you like to do. If social media seems scary, like it does to me, you don't have to do that. That's okay. But if you want to focus on working with us to do a tour of your property and share with others, that's awesome. And if you're the opposite way and you love social media and taking pictures and sharing in that way, we'd love to hear about it too. We just want to sort of hear like what works for you. We don't expect you to do everything. And I think that's where we'll sort of wrap up the formal part of the going over the application. And we wanted to save the rest of the time we have together for questions and digging into your projects. So but then maybe we can, yeah, exactly. You read my mind. To be able to all look at each other and be able to answer some questions. So we'll just open it up. If anybody wants to either raise your hand or put it in the chat, or even unmute and just let us hear what questions or comments that you have about your own projects that you're thinking about. Olga?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. Just to follow up, as far as examples of costs that you have reimbursed, other than, for example, seeds, can you give some more examples of what you have done for projects? Thank you.
Different examples of projects that we've done?
Of the costs that you have reimbursed.
Of the costs we've reimbursed. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that overall, the bulk of the projects, what they are asking for are plant materials. So whether, depending on how you're doing it, if you're doing a large, say an acre or something like that of pollinator habitat starting from a meadow, it could be all in seed costs, for example. It could be more, if you're looking at smaller, be looking at plugs or potted perennials, shrubs as well. So plant materials really often is sort of the greatest component of the budget. It just depends on what type of project you're doing and the scale of that project, what that may look like. Other soil amendments are also allowable expenses, depending on what your goals are. Though many pollinator habitats, they actually don't do that well in really rich soils. So we're not often adding that many soil amendments because they can be just as competitive in other types of soils. But that could be, depending on your project, could be an allowable expense as well. Some contractor work is okay if it's for something that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do on your own. Say if you needed to bring in a piece of equipment, if there's some to dig parts of a large rain garden, that would be an allowable expense as well. Also, if you're doing like a rain garden or some pollinator habitat, a lot of times people will purchase mulching material to put around the plants to be able to help with water retention, especially with the droughts we've been having a lot of over the past few years. So, and anything like that is really sort of the bulk of where we see a lot of the expenses going into plant materials, soil amendments, mulches. Vinay, is there anything that I'm missing that you've seen in the most recent projects?
I think you've covered it really well. I can't remember if silage tarps have been covered or if you mentioned that.
Thank you. Anything that's going to help you if you're going for that organic method of a kill of the existing vegetation, like killing off sod, for example, and you need to put in silage tarps to be able to sort of those like dark black plastic, basically, right? Like to kill it off for the course of the summer for you to be able to do a fall planting. Those types of materials are absolutely allowable as well.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any other questions or want to share what, we want to be doing, but you still have some thoughts about, sort of want to troubleshoot around? Beth?
I just wanted to throw out a couple of questions for your thoughts or comments. Since I am hoping to do this application on my own, but using the time and talent of a couple of Keene State students and their professor, my expectation was that I would be the person submitting the proposal. I would be the person committing to the budget and the timeline and the expected results and the completed report at the end. Mm-hmm. But I could still use these students as a resource for me, and also I would be a resource for them. Does that sound like a reasonable approach?
Yes, absolutely. I like to hear that you said you're the one as the applicant and the landowner that was going to be taking responsibility for the application and the budget and the final report, because it shows that level of commitment as students kind of come and go with their semesters, right? So we love that sort of long-term commitment of the landowner, but it's awesome that you're utilizing partnerships and the resources in our community to be able to make your project successful. So working with students on sort of planning, ideas, installation, any of that is more than welcome. One project Vinay and I were just talking about that we loved working with this past year was with the UCC Church in Keene, who did some installation of pollinator habitats as a grantee for this. And they were amazing to work with because they had this whole team of people that were like excited about it, into it, volunteering and making it all come together. So we always encourage partnerships. So thanks for that question, Beth. Margaret?
Hello. I have about 9 acres and I see many possibilities. And what I want to know is, do you have, or can you recommend somebody I can consult with? Because you can't do everything. And say, well, do I do something along the stretch of stream? I have a year-round stream, next to my property. Do I, as you said, is a pollinator bed a better use? Is a rain garden in the low-lying areas a bet? You can't do everything. And somebody who is a little more familiar with better use of the land, I need that kind of help, because otherwise it gets a little bit overwhelming.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks for that.
And before you make the application, you have to sort of decide on what you're going to do. And deciding on what you're going to do, it makes a little sense to try to do something that is a better use for the land, you know, and
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
That's a great question, Margaret. I appreciate that. So being the first snowfall, or one of the first snowfalls today, we have a little less, as we're getting into this time of year, it's a little harder to come out and do site visits and really sort of look at what's happening on your property. Some things will be hidden, based on like the type of vegetation that's already there, and sort of if you have different water features on your property. I mean, we could, but that being said, we are interested in working with people and scheduling a time to come by, drop by, and talk to you about your project. That's absolutely, you're welcome to ask us about trying to schedule something like that. I would also encourage you, if you decide that you're not ready to apply for this round, but you want to utilize some time over the course of this next year to do some thinking and some planning, to reach out to us if you think like, oh, it would make better sense for you to come see my property in the spring based on the water levels or something like that. It could, depending on your project, whatever that may look like. You know, you could say, okay, let's set up a time and we would be happy to come do a site visit with you then, and then give you some ideas and feedback on what would be a really good project based on your goals. Really, it's the most important thing, that's there's alignment with your goals, but also, like you're saying, what makes the most sense for a piece of property. Like if you're on a lake or a pond, it might be vegetative buffers or a rain garden versus just doing a pollinator habitat, but you could be incorporating features that help bring in, you know, native plants that bring in pollinators as well. So yes, we invite you to definitely reach out to us and let us know if you would like a site visit, if you're in that sort of questioning phase of project planning.
When you say reach out, I should send an email, call on the telephone,
Yeah.
yell out my window.
I think an email would probably be the most efficient way to do it if we're just looking to schedule something, but a phone call, of course, is welcome too.
Okay, yeah. I also have lots of pictures of the property at different times of the year and things that are growing. So I realize some things are now under snow, but it's not completely unknown. But thank you kindly.
Yeah, of course. And I'll just add that I'll be sending everyone a follow-up email just with today's slides, so you can get some of those helpful links as well. And you can feel free to just respond to that email directly should you have any questions for Amanda or I, or want to find a time to connect.
Other questions, thoughts to explore? Anything for points of clarification that would be helpful? I will just share one thing, because it came up as a question from someone this year who's interested in applying. They asked, why on earth are you limiting it to 25 acres? Because they thought, wouldn't the bigger the better be? And so I thought I'd just clarify why we did that. As there are federal programs as well as state programs for landowners who are interested in investing in wildlife habitat, but they're often, even though some say they're size neutral, they're often very limited for smaller landowners. So like, for example, if you haven't looked into it yet, and you are a landowner of more than 25 acres, this New Hampshire Fish and Game Department through the state of New Hampshire has a great wildlife enhancement program. It's called a small grants program for landowners. So just wanted to share that with you in case you happen to be on the larger side of things with landowners. But if you have a large forested tract, for example, or agricultural fields, well, we would also love to hear from you, because even if this isn't a great fit through the Conservation Opportunity Fund, we work very closely with our partners at the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, through their Environmental Quality Incentive Program, which is a great program for larger landowners to look at management of habitat in meeting their goals. So if you are interested in that, definitely feel free to respond to that email that Benet is going to send out as well. And we'd be happy to connect you with the right folks to come do a site visit on your property. Anyone, Margaret, do you have a follow-up?
Oh, I missed the very first part of this. How many grants do you give out per year? And is just February is the time of the grant?
Yeah, just February, and we do it this time frame just because we like to give the landowners, the grantees, plenty of time to secure their plant materials, because over the course of the past few years, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it is tough to find what you want at nurseries around. So because with the pandemic, people more and more have been gardening, and so we want to make sure people know early on in March that they have the grants. So we just do it that one time a year. And it varies year to year how many grants that we've done. It depends on the amounts people are looking for, but I'd say probably like around 5 would be a typical amount that we could give out in 2023 grant round.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else have any questions or final thoughts that they would like to share with the group?
Let me follow up. I received in past years a little pamphlet booklet. I'm not sure if it's from your organization or from the University of New Hampshire, but it's native trees and shrubberies and things that one can order. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm wondering if it's through the New Hampshire State Nursery.
State Nursery, yeah.
Yeah.
You can order things comparatively inexpensively, but if you're, okay.
Yep, the New Hampshire State Nursery is a fabulous resource that we're very lucky to have in the state of New Hampshire. They do a really great job of sourcing native plants, and it is very inexpensive is the positive side of that. I don't want to call it a negative, but what some people think of as a downside of the New Hampshire State Nursery is just the size, the age of the plants. They're quite small.
Yes, they're young, and you
young.
obviously have to do a lot of prep work so that such plants can survive.
Yes, exactly, Margaret. That's exactly what
scorched earth or something, so that they're not, they can't compete with other trees and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, that's something to think about if you want to work with the New Hampshire State Nursery or looking at plants that are younger and smaller. You want to think of plant protection as part of the grant. So you might want to have tree guards or some sort of, cage. Some people have been more successful with some caging that they put around to try to help reduce wildlife damage while things are trying to get established at those.
That's something that they also sell?
I don't think that the state nursery sells
Okay.
that. I'm not sure, but I don't think they do. But that would be something that you could include as part of your budget if you were putting in a grant request through us, is because that was anything that's going to really help your project be more successful.
Now the things on there that would have interested me more were native berries and things that would kind of be related to pollinator, wildlife, sort of, I don't know, that sort of thing. But so anyway, I say I was not sure how connected. There are several entities in the state that do very good work, it seems like, and I wasn't sure how connected y'all are.
Yeah, we try to collaborate and complement each other's work as much as possible. And so one thing we could do as part of that follow-up, Benet, maybe we can send out a link to the New Hampshire State Nursery as well, if it's not already on there. That way, if other folks are interested in learning more about the resource Margaret's talking about.
Yeah, I know they have like a cutoff, like you have to order your stuff and then you have to pick it up. They're like a couple of days in, I don't know, April or something, when you have to pick it up. And but yeah, but otherwise it's very nice. Lots of trees and things and very good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. All right, anyone else with questions or thoughts? Are there any other resources that you guys would like to see us pass along? Anything you're feeling like, wow, I wish we had a resource on X, Y, or Z?
I know, oh, sorry. When Suck Up the Rain came out to do a site visit here, they were talking about salt tolerant plants for near the road. And she wasn't sure about, like, they had a list of good rain garden plants, but that hadn't been correlated necessarily with which ones were also salt tolerant. So salt tolerant plant list would be excellent.
Thank you. We will look for that. I think we have something that has some noted on which ones are salt tolerant. We'll get that out too. Andrea, were you going to ask something?
Yeah, I guess my question, I need to go back to your website and really comb through it in more detail, but do you already have resources on there for rainwater gardens and collecting rainwater and that type of thing? Is it there, or if not, do you have a resource that you would recommend?
We do, but I'm going to let Benet answer that just because she's been doing a lot of the rain garden site visits and might be able to answer it more easily for you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just gonna tell you, Amanda, we do have a lot of the different resources on the website. But sometimes I feel like the best way to get answers for the rain garden is to, connect you directly to Soak Up the Rain, because they do have so many more resources on their end of things as well. So, take a look at the website. And if you come across anything you feel like, wow, there's a gap in resources here, just feel free to, either respond directly to the email or give us a call, and we will get you connected to them, and we will get you in touch with those resources. But I will be in touch with all of you, and please don't hesitate to reach out. We're really here to support you all in your projects and to offer as much guidance as we can.
Sorry, please say the name of the group again. Suck Up the Rain?
It's Soak Up the Rain, New Hampshire.
Soak Up the Rain, New Hampshire.
And they're through the Department of Environmental Services through the state.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have some really great resources online as well. And I believe they should be linked to our website on that Conservation Opportunity Fund page. But I'll add a direct link in the email that I send to you all, so you can have that.
Thank you.
I just want to take a second and thank you all so much for your interest in improving the wildlife habitat on your properties. Just the fact that you stopped, read through this, and took the time to join us tonight is very inspiring to us too. So please keep in touch. We'd love to hear about your projects. We'd love to sort of see applications. And then if you're not ready to do an application and you're interested in a site visit later on in the year, we'd also love to have that conversation with you. So thank you so much.